Well, I want to thank you all for attending our webinar today. As I said before, my name is Lisa Vivinetto. I am the Chief Marketing Officer and also one of the co-founders of Dynamic Benchmarking. I will stop. I will ask for questions throughout the presentation. If you have anything you want to ask at all, please feel free to do so. Okay. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about dynamic benchmarking, just so you have a little bit of history with us. Dynamic benchmarking opened its doors and began our work in March of 2010, is actually when we formed our LLC and had been at it for about 6 months before. So we're coming up on our 4th anniversary. We're located in beautiful New Hampshire, just north of the Boston, Massachusetts line. So if any of you have been to New England, you know that even though it sounds like New Hampshire is far up in the woods, it actually can be very close to the big city. That Patrick Burnett of AMI, who is with us now, can attest to the fact that since that time, we've been going like gangbusters, developing platforms for associations, almost 100% exclusively. And at this point, we have 30-plus benchmarking platforms that we've developed that are in various stages of development and that are in use with associations large and small across the entire country for a variety of different types of benchmarking. One of the things that's unique about us is that we are a company that is solely committed to benchmarking. It is all that we do. It is what we pride ourselves on. We've developed a technology-based platform, but aside from the platform, we also offer consultation skills, marketing skills to help people bring their benchmarking platforms and projects to life. Our platform is a constantly evolving one because of our unique focus on just benchmarking. We are constantly looking for ways to improve it, taking suggestions from our clients, from our prospects, from the RFPs that we receive, and putting things on the roadmap and bringing them to life with new versions so that it's a very updated process. We frequently speak with people who have developed some sort of benchmarking platform in-house, and without a lot of care and of attention, it slowly can become obsolete. And that's one of the reasons people outsource their benchmarking to us, is because it's all we do and we're on top of it. We offer a variety of different types of benchmarking platforms. There we go. We have built a number of different types of solutions, some that measure operations and how businesses, association members that are businesses, go about doing their business so that they compare to others. Others are financially based. We ask people actually for the information from their spreadsheets and from their income statements and their expense worksheets, and they're able to compare themselves financially to their peers. We do some that are adherence to best practices and policies, and even have scoring mechanisms where you can say, this is the standard, this is how I do, and at the end of your benchmarking platform, you get a score so that you can learn about your performance and where the gaps are. Some that are starting now to be not for organizations so much as for individual professionals who are interested in comparing their professional development to others. Where have I come from? What kind of schooling did I have? How do I compare to others in my industry? And lastly, and in a growing way, compensation and benefits. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'd like to show you today during the course of our demo 3 different compensation and benefits, or C&B platforms, that we've developed for 3 very different types of clients. The first one's going to be for the North Carolina medical group managers. The second one is going to be for ASAE, and the third one's going to be for a group called AUPHA, the Association of University Programs in Healthcare Administration. So based on those names, you can see they range from the big to the small, and sometimes, you know, somewhat obscure. So that being said, I'm going to switch over now to the first platform, the one that we've developed for the North Carolina Medical Group Managers Association. Ours is a configurable web-based platform. So when I go to the login page for North Carolina Medical Group Managers, what you're seeing is a web page. You can see up here, these are the different web tabs that I have open. And this page is the page that someone who's going to use the benchmarking platform for North Carolina would come to every time they want to log in. When we talk about our platform being configurable, what that means is we brand it. and we name it for each of our clients. Actually, clients get to choose the name and the logo themselves and the color scheme. But more important than the branding is the customization of the actual content. So what North Carolina wanted to do with theirs, they call it Checkpoint. They've actually taken this platform and resold it to other state medical group manager associations. So this association is using this as a source of income, which is very interesting. They used to do an old-fashioned or lower tech comp and benefits survey, brought it to this web-based platform, and now have doubled their sales. They hope to get 5 other states to buy it this year, but have actually more than doubled, have about 12 or 15 that have signed up so far. So there's lots of different ways to work within our platform, but the basic bones of it are the same for every client. So what I'm going to do is just show you how someone would log in. You see down here every user, individual, in this case every medical group manager, would log in using a username and a password that are unique to them. These username and passwords are loaded with data encryption technology to make sure that the data stays safe and secure, and you'll notice up here that we're on a secure website. This is very important, especially when it comes to comp and benefits data, because people need to have some sense of security knowing that confidential salary information is going to be kept secure. So once you log in, you put in your username and password, you hit the submit button, and you're brought to the main gateway page. So I'll scroll down. Each one of the dynamic benchmarking platforms, as I said before, because it's a configurable sort of semi-custom solution, each one of them has 3 tabs across the top. In this case, your data input tab is called My Practice, because these are for medical practice managers. And this is where you input your data and actually put in your salary, comp, benefits information. The next tab called Compare Practices. It's just comparing your practice to everybody else. And then lastly, Reports and Charts, which are pre-configured by the client in conjunction with dynamic benchmarking, and they are PowerPoint slide decks of graphs and images that an end user can easily access without having to do any, number crunching whatsoever. These graphs and charts are there for them. So the way I thought I would structure this demo today would be to show you each of these 3 tabs using a different client. So to give you a sense of how our platform can look as you go from client to client, but also to show you how different clients organize and display their data, even given the fact that all 3 of these are comp and benefit surveys. So that said, I'm going to start with North Carolina, and show you the data entry process. Every dynamic benchmarking page is split into these same basic subsections. You have global metrics and annual metrics. Metrics is another word for questions. Global metrics are those things like profile data, general information that is not likely to change from year to year. So we put it in its own separate category, and if you were to come back and do this salary survey for the next year, your profile data would still be there. The annual metrics are the categories of information that are likely to change from year to year. Now, you'll notice when you look at these that salary administration, benefits, support staff salaries, diagnostic staff salaries are just categories. I can't click on these. They're just headings, if you will. But that underneath each of these, in gray and hyperlinked, are a series of questions. So if I were to click on this compensation section, I would be launching that part of the survey. So what we essentially do is take large comp and benefit surveys, or surveys of any type, and break them up into nice, easy to navigate, manageable chunks. So a person could come in and out as much as they want. They can use these question tallies to see where their holes are. Oh, I see I've answered 28 of 28 here. I'm done. I have some gaps in this section. So the idea is that it is not a linear process. You can get others to help you by just creating additional accounts. And it's a very user-friendly, easy to use process. At the bottom of the page is the third part of this home page, and that's the progress report. This is what lets a user know for any given year, because I'm showing you the 2012 page, what percentage of the questions I've answered. And this overall completion rate is driven by these question tallies. Each client gets to set a threshold that they insist that a data contributor reach before they're given access to the comparison. So in this case, I've done 48%, and I see that 48% is enough here, and I have access to comparison. Had I answered just a few questions, this association would say, no, I'm sorry, you haven't reached enough of a threshold. And that's a way to ensure that people aren't going to just go in and take the information without also having to supply their information. So I would just want to show you a couple of sections so you can see how this is organized and how someone would go about entering their actual data. So I'm going to go up to the salary administration section, and I'm going to show you how they have organized their questions. They wanted to have questions about how salaries get administered and benefits mixed right in with the actual compensation data. So here's an example where they've grouped these all on one page. So if I were to go to salary administration compensation and just click the first section, you'll see that I'm brought to the series of questions. The questions are always on left with a little caret mark, and if there's any instructions that apply to it, they're down in blue right below. We call that help text. So our platform is very flexible. It can ask any type, you can ask any type of questions you want. So who makes the compensation increase decisions at your practice? Check all that apply. I can check or uncheck however many that I want. This question is simply a fill-in a number, and the percentage is already assigned. This is a drop-down question. So, when our compensation review is completed, we define what we mean by anniversary, quarterly, annually, other, and we give people a choice from a drop-down. These are just some fill-in the blank number amounts for payroll totals. So how much is your total base pay, payroll, how much is your overtime, etc. So these are overarching questions about, in this case, an individual medical practice. At the bottom of this page, these two metrics, you'll notice, do not have a box around them and appear bold. That's because these are auto-calculated metrics. As soon as I answer all of these questions, you could probably do the math as quickly as I can, this number is calculated. It is the total payroll amounts at the practice. And this is the overtime as a percentage of the total payroll. So even though these are very simple examples, it suggests that we have the capability that once a number gets entered, we can perform any mathematical functions on it that you want. This can be a very, very powerful feature and can really cut down on error rates when people are entering a lot of numbers. So an end user would come in for the first time, they would just answer these basic questions, and when they're done, they could hit submit. They could change their mind if they want, hit submit next, which would just simply take them to the next section here. So a series of overall administration questions. It's very, very easy to enter your data in a dynamic benchmarking platform. So that's overarching information, but I also want to show you how we go about, and it's a little different, entering actual salary administration. In a traditional comp and benefits or salary survey, usually the person completing the survey has to determine which positions they have, and then using a big table usually, go in and fill in the answer a series of questions, base compensation, bonus compensation, whatever, core group of questions you're going to ask for each position. And it can make those studies very unwieldy. Sometimes it can be pages and pages of data. So we've taken that and we've simplified it a little bit by using what we call templated metrics. So these are the categories of positions in a typical medical office: support staff, diagnostic staff, nursing, etc. I'm just going to show you finance and admin just for the heck of it, where in the first section you are asked to check all the people that you actually have employed at your practice. So you're going to check the ones you have applied, and then you're going to answer the data for them in the next section. Now, one of the things that's interesting that North Carolina did, they were very, very concerned with capturing the years of experience for each person. They really wanted people to be able to compare with that extra level of granularity. So the way they've set up their whole platform is that they want you to select in the finance and administration area all of these positions, if you have them, with less than 1 year of experience. The same list of positions if you have between 1 and 5 years of experience, etc., 5 to 10, and then 10 plus. Not everybody organizes it this way. Other people collect years of experience in other ways, but this is how North Carolina chose to do it. So you'll notice they have no people just by coincidence, and this is just dummy data, I should point out, but that in this category, they have 3 people in their finance and administration. These are the 3 they have, and they all have less than 1 year of experience. So on this first page, you check the people you have, and then you go and you actually fill in the salary information for them. Now, I'm clicking the less than 1 year tab because that's where my 3 people happen to be. And above this dotted line, it says choose which staff person you want to edit. You'll notice that on my drop-down menu are the 3 positions that I checked and I said that I had. Had I checked more, this list would be longer. So for the first person administrative assistant, it's already been filled out for me. North Carolina wanted to know how many people do you have with that title. And then this series of questions. What is their average hourly rate? What is their average annual bonus, etc., etc. Now, they're choosing to do this annually. They're choosing to collect the number of people in a position. Not everybody does it that way. And as we go through, you'll see other people have collected annual, not hourly. They're not concerned about the number of people. You could collect minimum that you pay. You can collect salary range information. But the basic structure is always the same. You choose which positions you have in which department, and then you go in and you fill out the information for each of them. So if I were going to go to the next position, administration secretary, you'll see nothing's been filled out. It would be as simple as going in, typing in some data. I'm making up these numbers right now, and hitting submit when I'm done. So that is the data entry process. It's a lot less wieldy than having to go through tables and tables. It just becomes very streamlined because you're only providing the data for the people you have, and it's all very simple. So at this point, I'm going to take a break. I've been talking for a while, and see if anybody has questions at all about the data entry process.
This is Roseanne. I have a question.
Yes.
How about if you have 3 administrative assistants? Can you fill out 3 different forms? Does all have less than 1 year experience? Or do you do the average?
Yeah, you know, we will do whatever you want, and it's a good question, Roseanne, because many people who come to us are looking to replicate or replace a more traditional survey, whereas other people are starting afresh. If you've always done it that way and really feel that's the best approach, then of course we'll help you figure out how to do that. But in reality, you're better off having one set of data for each position. And so we would ask you, in an ideal scenario, if you really wanted to follow the best practice, it would be best to average it, or perhaps do what I said earlier, and that is report the minimum for that position and the maximum for that position.
Okay.
Other questions about the data entry process?
Lisa, it's Patrick. I have a question, but I'm going to hold it because it's not. I'm pretty familiar with the data entry process, but I'll hold it till a little bit later.
Okay, now I know a few people joined us after we got underway, and let's see. I'm not sure exactly what your names are because they're not coming in with actual names, but if there's, if you have any questions, feel free to introduce yourself and pipe in, and if not, I'm going to move on to the comparison.
Hi, Lisa. This is Brian Chason from the Paperboard Packaging Council.
Hi, Brian. No problem. Nice to have you here.
I have a question. What happens when one of the clients, when they submit their data, does a submission error? You know, wrong number or decimal place off. Who kind of checks that, so to speak?
Generally speaking, that is the responsibility of the administrator at the association. So an end user isn't going to be told that they are making an error as they're going through the data submission process. It's generally the administrator at the account level, at the association level, who is going into the administrative console, the back end of this platform, which is not what you're looking at right now. And we have a variety of reports you can run that look for outliers, and then the ultimate check is the ability to validate the data point by point to make sure that everything seems correct. Now, some people, some of our clients are very concerned about validation, and they really will only release the platform for comparison once they're sure that every data point in it is 100% accurate. And others are a little looser about it. It's more of a self-reporting tool, and as long as there's no glaring errors and the outliers are corrected, which is fairly simple to do, they'll let it roll. So again, Brian, it's one of those things that we consult with each of our clients, and we figure out what is the approach you're looking for. How immediate do you want people to have access to this data? Do you want someone to be able to put it in and in the same day be able to compare themselves? And if so, you're going to have to give up a little level of validation, or would you rather scrub it and make sure it's 100% accurate?
Right, because I remember you showing us initially when people can submit their data and just right away see the results and some of the averages.
That's right.
But to me, I encounter a lot of errors in some, especially in the compensation side, and you have to go back to them. And to me, I think it would definitely skew a lot of things if there was an immediate view of the data before anyone had a chance to review and proofread.
Right. Well, I'll tell you that you're in good company, because when we did ASAE's comp and benefits platform, they were very concerned with locking down the data. So when you first went to ASAE's platform, when you logged in, all you saw was this first tab. The ability to compare and the ability to report, generate reports and charts wasn't even there, because they wanted to scrub and really lock down that data before they let anybody see. So that is definitely a choice you have, and we'll work with you to, open it up for comparison reports whenever you think it's appropriate to do that. ASAE took it even one step further. They said that anyone who wanted to come in and use the platform after the database was locked down was welcome to come in and type in their data the way I just showed you. We type it in, but they didn't want that data going into the aggregate data set. They kept it locally for the person so they could come in and run reports and always see their data point, but they did not want it in their database. So we have a lot of bells and whistles and switches we can flip to match your business process and make the platform work for you. Any other questions about data entry? Okay, so now I want to move over and I want to show you this Compare tab, but I'm going to switch platforms and I'm going to show it to you for AUPHA, the Association for University Programs and Healthcare Administration. This is an association for people who work in healthcare management in universities. So this is actually AUPHA's second platform that they did for us. The first was all about their degree programs and just how many applicants and what's your acceptance rate and where do you advertise, just so people who do this would be able to understand sort of the operational aspects of running these programs. But then they came back and said, now our members are so used to using this benchmarking platform, now they want to know how they as individuals compare to others who are in the field, who are professors or administrators or whatever else there might be in the field of education for healthcare management. So what you're looking at for them is a very, very simple comp and benefits survey that they did, which isn't geared for whole organizations to enter a series of positions and a series of salaries. It's just for one person who's a professional in this field to go in, enter their data, and see how they compare individually to others. So in this case, I want to show you, you'll see same overall layout, global metrics. This is the profile information. In this case, it's about you as the individual and about your degree program. And then here's their position information. In this case, you'll also notice in the progress report, they have 3 years of data in here, which is interesting considering we just launched this. I think I'm bringing this up because I want to let you know that very often when people start a new benchmarking platform with us, they also want to give their people access to previous years of data if they have done it before, because it gives people the immediate ability to do year-over-year comparisons. So if you've done a survey before and you're feeling a little reticent about leaving that data behind, that is not a cause for concern. As long as you can give us the file in a give us the data in a file that's easily mapped over, we can upload it into the platform. So even though this is the first year, 2013, that we're doing this platform, an individual, like the person I'm logged in as, can compare themselves and see how they've changed over the past 2 years. So in this case, I'm now going to go to the comparison section, And I want to show you what it looks like when you start doing some comparisons. So I'm going to go to the compensation section. And for the moment, I'm going to bypass this. That's the top. Those are our filters. And I want to show you how the actual data points are played out and displayed to you when you go to do comparison information. So let's start with this question. What is your annual base salary? Now, a moment ago, we're assuming this person typed in that their salary was $75,000. And I know that that's their answer because it's in blue above the line designated with this little triangle. The number beside it indicates the percentile that they fall in when they're compared to everyone else in the database. So their $75,000 in salary puts them in the 25th percentile, and they're plotted on a number line where this number represents the 25th percentile. Coincidence, that's where they happen to be. The number here is the median or 50th percentile, and on the right is the 75th percentile. So for those of you in comp and benefits, this is the salary range. 75,000 to 118 from 25th to 75th percentile. And every individual can see, in this case, where their salary falls. Now, if you are not crazy about the number line or you want to know more about the shape of the line and the actual sort of how the data points lay out, we provide for each numeric metric a pop-up chart right here. When I click on the graph, I'm instantaneously given this very nice looking board-ready slide that gives me the same information but just displayed a little differently. There's my data point, $75,000. The same 25th, 50th, 75th percentile are there, but now I can see the actual shape of the line. In many cases, and in this one especially, you can see there's some pretty sharp rises once you get outside the 75th percentile. Some of those data points that might, skew the data, which is why we like to sort of take out the low end and the high end. These board-ready slides can be very helpful when you're going to hire someone or someone's making a case and they want to, have a raise. So it's nice to have graphic output that you can share with others. This can be saved to PDF or saved to a PowerPoint, and you've got the slide and you're ready to go with it. You can throw it in a report, an email, whatever you want. So you'll get one of those slides for every one of the graphics. If it was a non-numeric question that we asked, for example, in this case, what is your contract term? They were asked, they had to pick one. They had a 9-month contract, 10, or 11 to 12. Again, the respondent's answer is always shown in blue, so they had a 10-month contract, and the percentage beside it is the number of people who also responded like you. So this person's in the minority because they only have a 10-month contract, only 6% of the people do. If I wanted to see what that chart looked like, I have a bar chart here that would show me this data plotted on a graph as well. So for each question that you ask, and in this case in the C&B platform, it could be a question about your overall compensation administration or overall about your benefits, or it could be about a particular salary for a particular position. You're going to get your data put like this. Now, where this gets very interesting, though, and becomes much more meaningful, and why we call ourselves dynamic benchmarking, is that at the top of this compare page, we give people the ability to drill down into the database, filter the database to compare their data point to people who are more like them based on a set of criteria. Each of our clients gets to choose the filters that they want to use. So AUPHA said, you know what? There's a lot of filters we want people to be able to drill down on. We want them to be able to compare themselves based on position, on gender, on their ethnicity, on their age, on their salary, etc., etc., etc. Each of these questions, or filters I should say, is a question that we asked elsewhere in the platform. So the way it works in dynamic benchmarking is if you ask the question and it is a metric, later on it can become a filter. And you can have as many of these or as few of these as you want. This is the real distinction between using a paper-based survey and using a web-based dynamic platform. You give the end user the ability to drill down and say, hey, how does, in this case, my salary compare to everyone? Or how does it compare to a subgroup that I can define myself? So in this case, let's just start with a real basic filter. We'll start with gender. I happen to know that this sample data that we're looking at is for a woman. So I know right now that I'm in the 25th percentile compared to everyone. If I select the gender filter, I select from the drop-down menu that I was presented with before, and I hit apply, I'm immediately told how many participants I'm now comparing myself to. So I know there are 66 other women who have answered this survey, and that my $75,000 in salary now puts me in the 28th percentile. So I jumped a little bit because of that. Now what's great about the filters is you can layer them on any endless combinations as much as you want. So if I wanted to compare myself not only just to women who've answered the survey, but women who have a similar amount of experience that I do, I can go down and I can activate the years of academic experience. Now you'll notice it has the word add here instead of a drop down. That's because this is a numeric filter. And for numeric filters, the user is presented with a range where they can set the range as narrow or as wide as they want it to be. Or you can simply type in the box. Now, I happen to know that this fake person that we're working with has been on the job, I think it's 6 years. So I'm going to put her right in the middle of the range and say she wants to compare herself to people with between 2 and 10 years of experience who are also female. And when I hit the apply button, I'm now being told that I've drilled down from 66. Now there are 31 participants who match that. And my data point, obviously my salary hasn't changed, but now amongst my peers who have the same amount of experience that I do, who are also my gender, I'm now in the 38th percentile for salary. So, the most of the time when people are using comp and benefit information, it's because they either have someone who wants an adjustment to their salary or they're looking to hire. And they want to know, either based on region or years of experience or degree held, what do I need to offer this person? Normally, a person is forced to extrapolate from a set of predetermined graphs and charts. Where does this person fit in? Well, on this chart, their dot is over here, but on this chart, their graph dot is over there, so I guess I'm going to offer them somewhere in the middle. In dynamic benchmarking, you don't need to do that. You can set as many filters as you want and have a very specific data point and salary range. If I were to hire a woman with this many years of experience for this position, I know that it has to offer somewhere between 65 and 99. Now, I could continue drilling down. If I got to the point where I drilled down that it was such a narrow number of people who met the criteria, I would get an error message that says, I've drilled down too far. And we do this to protect the anonymity of the people who have supplied their data. It is not our intention ever for anyone to be able to drill down to the point where they can say, aha, I have figured out who I'm now comparing myself to. That's part of protecting the anonymity of people who supply data so they feel comfortable and will come back and do it year after year. That threshold, the number below which you cannot go, is set individually by each of our clients. Are there any questions about the comparison filters, filtering the comparison data, how it gets displayed? Okay, then what I'd like to do is move on to our third part of the platform, because we've talked about data entry, showing you the platform from North Carolina, and we've talked about comparison, showing you the platform we did for AUPHA. Now I want to move on to graphs and charts, but I'm going to switch platforms again, and I'm going to show you the graphs and charts tab that we did for ASAE for their product that they decided to call Association Compensation Interactive. So by now you should see how all of these platforms pretty much look the same because the bones of it are the same, but that the overall use of graphics, icon, the name does give it a different feel as you go from client to client. This third tab, Reports and Charts, has a couple of different options on it. I'm going to start with the bottom of the page again, and then I'm going to work my way up. You should recognize at this point filters. We just showed you them for AUPHA. These are the filters that ASAE chose to have in their comp and benefits survey: metropolitan area, state, number of members, because this is about associations, what your budget is, how far you reach, etc. You can let your filters carry over if you've already filtered and compared yourself on a question-by-question basis, and now you want to generate this higher level of graph, or you can change them here if you wish. Down below are the list of reports in gray and hyperlinked again that an individual can choose to download to their computer. Now what's different about these is once I choose one of these, my data is going to be compiled up on the cloud on our platform, but then delivered locally and saved in your download tray for you to keep on your computer if you want to run reports on a regular basis, if you want to walk into a meeting and have a PowerPoint slide deck. It's important to make the distinction. These reports have not only different data than you saw before, but they're stored and in most cases used a little differently. So I'm going to download the Deputy CEO Compensation PowerPoint report. And hopefully you saw that it got downloaded right down here to my tray, which means I'm now going to access this locally on my computer. There we go. So for each of these reports, and I just chose one of them, but each of them represents a PowerPoint slide deck. The first slide is always what you see here. It's a cover slide. It lets you know the day you ran it, which report you ran, who you're logged in as, what fiscal year, and had I had any filters activated, they'd be listed right here. Then each of these reports contains a set of slides. They are pre-configured, meaning that the person who is our client at the association and the project manager at Dynamic Benchmarking sit down and we say, for each of these topical areas, what are the graphs and images that your users are most likely to need on the fly? Let's have them at the ready for them so that when they go in and they need something, they're already here. So for the CEO, Deputy CEO compensation report, these are the graphs and slides that ASAE decided they wanted. The first one is a line chart where it's compensation, where the blue line represents base compensation and the yellow line represents total compensation, including things like benefits, etc. Now, these are data points they pulled from the platform, but I want to emphasize that when we go to build your reports, you have an infinite amount of ability to pull from whatever metrics that you put there. So many people do calculated ratios in their reports. They take a number, they divide it by another number, so they can have, salary as a percentage of budget, etc. All of these reports are completely custom for you. We have many different chart styles, as you can see here. This is how a breakout of the total CEO compensation, where the blue bar, this is your organization, compared to the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile. And the blue represents base compensation, yellow is bonus and incentive, red is other reportable compensation, and green is retirement. So just looking at this very quickly, I see, wow, there's a really big difference between my bars and the others, and what the trend is as they go on. Here's an example of ASAE deciding they wanted to look at a couple of different things in one slide. This is the Deputy CEO total comp relative to the budget. So they've got the budget number for the organization in yellow on the line, and that's my data point, and they have the CEO comp in blue on this line. And they actually incorporated both scales. Here's the size of the organization, budget scale, and here's the compensation budget scale. So here's another one. This is total comp relative to staff size. And I could go on and on. You have the ability to put in as many slides as you want and have whatever data points as you want, stored locally on your computer. So that's, in a nutshell, what the dynamic benchmarking, standard slide output looks like. Before I show you some added features that ASAE added, I want to ask if you have any questions about our standard output.
This is Roseanne. I do have some questions.
Okay.
About this, because SMC Business Council is a trade association, and we're in the process of conducting our own survey using a third-party carrier. Okay. So we could utilize you folks doing the same thing that would administer our compensation survey.
Right.
Correct?
Yes, absolutely. For many, I'm sure that you are familiar with the Federal Trade Commission has some pretty interesting rules about the collection of data. One of their rules is that it needs to be administered by an objective third-party consultant, and that is us. Right.
Okay. All right. Yes. So that's good. And then let me ask you this: if we are now this report that you're giving, am I going to be the only one that sees this, or anybody who participated and or purchased the compensation survey will be able to see this?
Right. That's a good question. And you're kind of getting into that business model approach. Some people it's okay, and that's fine. I think it's a good question. Some people choose to give away their comp and benefits information purely as a member benefit. If you're part of our association, this is one of the things you get. Right. So if that was the case, you could have the option of giving access to this to everyone for free, whether they contributed data or not. Other people have a little bit more, you got to pay to play. I'm only going to give you access to reports and comparisons if you give us your data. Some people charge for it, and some people don't. Any of those permutations is a possibility, and we've done them all. So, once we dig in with the client, we say, okay, what's your objective here? Is it to enhance your member proposition? Well, then maybe if you can afford to, maybe you should give it away, because then it's a very compelling reason for people to stay with you. Is it a source of non-dues revenue? Do you want to sell this information? Are there suppliers in your industry who would pay, a lot of money to know what goes on? Well, if that's the case, let's sell it to them and earn some money for you to offset the cost of it. So we have worked with people who have had every objective you can imagine and have structured sort of access to the platform in a way that meets their organizational objectives.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know. And then if someone if they're completing this survey and they have questions.
Yep.
On how to complete it.
Right.
Who would they call? Would they call you folks or would they call me?
Right. Well, in our model, the association who hires us is the first line for technical questions. So they would call you. But that being said, there's a lot of places they would go before they would call you with a question. And I'm going to show you the support page in a moment.
Oh, okay.
We make sure that there's tutorials and everything they would ever need to know on how to answer the question. Most of our administrators, and Patrick, you can pipe in with this since you are one, can attest to the fact that 99% of the calls that come in have to do with the lost password.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, true. And it is nice that that they can reset their password, though.
Oh, they can do it themselves? Because right now, they're calling me going, I need a link and a password.
Oh, okay.
And then, so they could do it themselves.
Yes, they can do it themselves, but if they've lost their information, I mean, those are the most typical types of technical support that our clients get. And then if there's a question that you can't answer, then you would come to us.
Okay.
Right. Really, we have very, very few technical questions because it's very intuitive, very simple to use.
And then okay? And then like right now, we have like, I don't know, about 500 people that we're sending email, but we're giving them specific links to go ahead, and it's according to the person's name and company, and a specific password. Is that normal?
Is it normal? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes. It depends on how you want to set it up. Our clients have done it in a variety of different ways. If you have previous years of data that you want people to be able to access as soon as they get to the platform, then you have to do something similar to what you just described, Roseanne, because I'm going to set up an account for that person ahead of time. I'm going to put in their previous years of data in there so they have it, and I'm going to have to send them an invitation, if you will, that is a link to their account, which has been already set up for them.
Okay.
Other times, if you just wanted to, say, just invite everybody to participate, you could just send out a general, hey, guess what? We've got this great new comp and benefits survey. Click on this link, and they are directed to a little sign-up form where they just create their own account right there on the fly. It could be either using e-commerce or not. If you're charging for it, they could give us their credit card information right there, and boom, you're in. Or if you're giving it away for free, they could go in, fill in a couple of fields, a username, a password, an email address, and create their own account. So again, we have the ability to match whatever business model you want.
Oh, thank you. That answered my question.
Excellent. Any other questions on reports? Cognizant of the time, it's 2:45, and I want to be timely. So I'm going to close. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said sorry. I'm like,
no problem. No problem. Okay, so I've left the PowerPoint, and I've come back to the ASAE platform because I wanted to show you something that ASAE did that's somewhat unique, but also something that I'm seeing more and more of. Now, if any of you are ASAE members, in the past it's possible that you would have purchased from them through their bookstore one of their printed salary survey reports, one which they call the National Association C&B Study, and one which is called the Greater Washington C&B Study. Now, ASAE, as much as they were very interested in bringing their platform onto the cloud and making it be interactive and helping people see their data point in every graph, they also felt very strongly that they couldn't do away with all the traditional reports they were selling for two reasons. One, there are just some people who, no matter what, are going to want to see it in a written out form. And two, they made money on them, and they were going to create them anyway. So we gave them the ability to create these reports in a PDF format and then offer them the actual written report to anyone who purchased access to the interactive version of the Comp and Benefits Survey. So on this reports charts, on the ASAE platform and on a couple of others, you'll see that there are also these reports that they can access here. They were created by ASAE, and we just loaded them up for their members to have access to. So one of the questions Roseanne just asked a moment ago was about support and where people go. There is a little menu kind of tucked up above the logo that has some functions like logging out and company setup, which is where you could actually go in as the administrator sort of at the member level and create additional accounts for other users in your organization if you wanted some help or you wanted other people to be able to read and look at the reports on their own without needing you. But the support page is what I want to show you. This is a very flexible page. People can do with it whatever they want in terms of helping their members use the data and understand what's there. Dynamic benchmarking always presents people with a data collection worksheet, which is essentially a replica of the questions in the platform in Excel format, so that for someone who would rather just sit down with a pencil and fill in the answers before they sit down to the platform and type them in, they have that ability. We also give everybody help documentation, PDFs on every stage of how to use the platform. So how to navigate around it, how to enter your data, how to do comparison, pretty much everything I just showed you. The terms of use agreement that you always have to click when you agree to use new software is here. Instructions on who to contact if you have help. So Kristen Berry at ASAE is the main contact person, like Patrick is over at Amy. Some of our clients put video tutorials up here. Some of them put guides for understanding and interpreting their results. And the list of things that you can put on this page is pretty much endless. If you can dream it up and you think it's going to be supportive and helpful to your members, we're happy to put it up on the support page. Okay, so that is pretty much how a dynamic benchmarking platform works. We started at the very beginning by logging in and understanding it's up on the cloud and that it's configurable, and it, as you can now attest, it can look pretty different for each of our clients even though the bones of it are the same. And that they all have these three sections where you enter your data, compare yourself on a question-by-question basis, and then can generate reports and charts. What you do with it from there is entirely up to you. Our project implementation consultants are very skilled at working with people who are, whether they're trying to create something from scratch and they've never done this before, but their members are clamoring for it and need a lot of help, to people who say, hey, we've been doing this for 30 years. We just want to bring it from the dark ages into the 21st century. Our project managers are really helpful and bring not only this technology, but also a wealth of experience in sharing what others have done, what works, what doesn't work. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to say about the platform. I want to take one more opportunity as I'm looking at the clock and seeing we're nearing our hour to see if there's anyone else who has any questions about the platform, the way we roll it out, or anything that we offer whatsoever.
Lisa, it's Patrick. I have a question. The reason I wanted to check this out was because we do, every other year, we do a compensation survey, and we've pretty much done it the same way every time. You know, we conduct a survey. For that, we've used a professional survey company, and they compile the results and everything, and they send us the reports, results, and everything. So we wanted to take a look and see if we, you know, if there might be value in doing it with dynamic benchmarking. And of course, I'm familiar with the whole data entry and everything since we have the benchmarking platforms with you. I guess what I'm wondering is if we wanted to send this to if we wanted to send this to the folks who would be responding to the survey, but not charge them for the results, typically what we do is we publish the results in our journal for the compensation survey. How would that work? Would because we'd be sending it out, we don't know who is going to choose to complete it and who would not. But I know with the benchmarking, everybody who's a subscriber gets gets access and gets very unique access and everything. But can you talk a little bit about if we wanted to, if we had a population of potential respondents that we wanted to get the survey out to, and then maybe a certain percentage of them actually respond to it. How would that work in terms of the login and giving them access and everything?
Right. Well, you would have a number of choices, as I said before. In the case where you're not sure who you want to invite and you want to get as large a data pool as possible, which is always, the goal, but sometimes it's more important than others, you could simply put a link in every piece of marketing communication that Amy puts out there, whether it's your newsletter, up on your message boards, in your journals, in whatever, that Amy is doing a comp and benefits survey, and if you're interested in completing it and participating, go to this link. And that link would be a landing page saying, thank you for your interest in the Amy comp and benefits survey, and it would be a sign-up form. I don't have an example of one that I could think of or I would show it to you, but it's a little pop-up window. It would pop up right here, and the people would be creating their own account on the fly.
Okay.
Now, it's a simple process, but where it gets a little confusing is, who do you want to answer the survey? If it has to be a member of Amy, then you're going to need some sort of membership verification process in there, which is something that we've done for people and are capable of doing. Very often what we do is an integration with an association's association management software, their AMS system. So whether it's IMIS, AUPHA, Vectra, whatever, the biggies are, and even the not so biggies, we can set up a process whereby when someone fills out the form to create an account and says, I want to do this, we are actually verifying against your membership roles to make sure the person's a member. We often do that when there's e-commerce involved. Also, that's not what you're talking about, but we would use the same technology because sometimes we charge a member price and a non-member price.
Right. That's what I was just going to say. And this is Roseanne. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No interruption.
But and I was thinking that we have our SMC members, and then we have partnerships or collaborations with the Pittsburgh Human Resource Association, so they get a discount. And we could put like a little check mark if they're a PHRA member or Westmoreland Human Resource member, then they could check mark right there, correct?
Yes, something like that. I'd be lying if I told you I knew all the technical ways it would work. But yes, that's how it would work.
Do something like that. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Patrick, did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Lisa.
Any other questions about any aspect of the platform, who we've worked with, what we do?
I'm happy to, and I know I'm not I'm not doing this as a favor to Lisa or anything, but since there are a couple minutes, this is Patrick, and I'm with the Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, and I just thought, since there are a couple minutes, I'd mention this. And Lisa, I promise Lisa didn't ask me to do this, but
no, this is an unpaid commercial announcement, folks.
But yeah, we have two benchmarking platforms currently with dynamic benchmarking, and we're working on a third right now that we'll be launching later this year. So. And they've been great to work with, and that's the reason why we're doing a third program with them. And if anybody has any questions about what we've done with them in terms of benchmarking and the products that we've developed with them, I'm happy to speak with folks offline. So Lisa could get you my contact info if you have questions for me about what we've done and that kind of thing. But they've been just great partners to work with, so that's why I'm watching this demo today to see if there might be yet another opportunity.
Well, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate your vote of confidence very much. At this point, then, I want to invite you all to stay tuned for further announcements from us. Today we focused this webinar just on comp and benefits and how our platform works for that to streamline the process and make sure that people are always able to see exactly where their salary figures, where the ranges lie, and what the actual data points are in a very interactive way. But as I mentioned before, our platform is very configurable and can be useful in a number of different types of benchmarking applications. So this is the first in a series of webinars where we will focus and show you examples of how our clients are using the technology to collect data for the benefit of the association as well as the members in a variety of different ways, whether it's finance, operations, adherence to best practices, maybe even we'll show one of Patrick's platforms in one of those. So I encourage you to stay tuned for that, and I thank you all for your attention today. I did want to put up my contact information very briefly, if I can get my, there we go, my contact information to show. That's my phone number and my email address. I obviously will have a record of who attended today, but in the meantime, before I can get back to you to follow up and see if you have any questions, if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So thank you all very much. This will conclude the webinar.